10 million years. That's how long it's been since a creature roamed eastern Africa in what is now Kenya. Its bones are now cataloged in museums under the name of one of the oldest finds in the family Mellivora. The Ngorora Formation contains layers of fossilized earth, where paleontologists discovered traces of a being that would eventually lead to an animal you've definitely heard of, but probably don't know everything about. We're talking about the honey badger, and the first thing to understand is that the honey badger isn't just an aggressive little critter from memes. It's the last surviving member of an entire subfamily. Not a species, not a genus, a subfamily. All its closest evolutionary relatives are extinct. It stands alone, like the last descendant of a dynasty that was once far more diverse and impressive in size. Let's dig into where it all began. Scientists believe the genus Mellivora likely evolved from a more ancient and primitive species called Promellivora punjabiensis, which lived in what is now India. From there, the evolutionary branch stretched into Africa, where it took root and began to develop. The honey badger's distant relatives are the extinct giants of the weasel family, Eomellivora and Ichorus, also found in Kenya. They were significantly larger than the modern honey badger, and if they had survived to this day, the conversation about the __0___ would sound quite different, but they didn't survive. The honey badger did, and that's significant because survival over millions of years isn't about strength or size. It's about adaptation. It's about fitting into any landscape and finding food where others can't. One of the extinct ancestors of the honey badger, Mellivora benfieldi, lived around 3.5 to 7 million years ago. Its remains were found in Langabandweg in southern Africa, as well as in southern Europe. It made its way there with a wave of African mammals migrating north at the end of the so-called Messinian period, when the Mediterranean Sea partially dried up and land bridges appeared between Africa and Europe. This creature traveled between continents long before humans learned to walk on two legs. Now, let's talk about the modern honey badger. It's the only living representative not just of the genus Mellivora, but also of the subfamily Mellivorinae. And it's important to note this because many confuse the honey badger with a badger. Externally, sure, it looks similar, stocky, sturdy, with a distinctive contrasting stripe on its back. But genetically, the honey badger is closer to martens and wolverines, not badgers. It just looks like a badger, but in essence, it's a completely different evolutionary story. By the way, about the name, Mellivora is a combination of two words, the Greek ___, __1___, meaning honey, and the Latin ___, __2___, meaning to devour, the honey devourer. It sounds like a specialist that only raids beehives. In reality, it's one of the most versatile predators among all weasels. Honey is just a part of its diet, and far from the main one. The honey badger eats everything it can get its paws on, from small lizards and rodents to snakes and tortoises. It's considered one of the least specialized members of its family, and in biology, "3" often means "4". And this brings us to geography. The honey badger's range covers all of Africa south of the Sahara, the Arabian Peninsula, Iran, and a significant part of the Indian subcontinent. It lives in deserts, savannas, mountain forests, and tropical jungles. It can be found from sea level to high mountain slopes. For an animal weighing up to 16 kilograms, that's a colossal range of conditions. Most predators of that size are tied to one type of habitat. The honey badger isn't. It feels equally at home in the hot sands of the Kalahari and the cool mountains of Ethiopia. Scientists identify up to 12 subspecies of the modern honey badger. The differences among them lie in body size and the shade of the stripe on their backs. Some subspecies are almost entirely black, while others have a bright white stripe that's wide. But they're all the same species, Mellivora capensis, spread across a vast territory from South Africa to Nepal. And here's what's truly striking. When we talk about animals that have survived millions of years of evolution, we usually think of crocodiles, sharks, and turtles, creatures that seem eternal. But the honey badger is a mammal, warm-blooded, active, with a high metabolism. Mammals go extinct more often than reptiles because they require more resources. And yet, this creature has outlived all its relatives. Ecorus is extinct. Eomellivora is extinct. Mellivora benfieldi is extinct. And it's still here. What allowed it to survive? The answer, surprisingly, isn't a single super ability. It's a combination. The honey badger is an engineering project where every detail is fine-tuned for survival, from the structure of its skin to the shape of its claws, from its resistance to toxins to its behavioral strategies. Each of these details deserves a conversation of its own. If an engineer were tasked with designing an animal that needs to survive fights with opponents 3 times its size, dig through the earth like an excavator, climb into beehives full of angry bees, and weigh no more than an average dog, the result would likely look just like the honey badger, because every detail of its body is a solution to a specific problem, not decoration, not coincidence, but a functional answer honed by millions of years of natural selection. Let's start with size. The honey badger is the largest terrestrial member of the weasel family on the entire African continent. Its body length ranges from 55 to 77 centimeters, and it can weigh up to 16 kilograms. Males are noticeably larger than females, which in biology is called sexual dimorphism. But the numbers alone aren't impressive. 16 kilograms is the weight of a small spaniel. What's impressive is how those 16 kilograms are arranged inside, and the main engineering marvel of the honey badger is its skin. At its neck, the thickness reaches 6 millimeters. For comparison, that's about the thickness of 3 stacked coins, but thickness isn't the most interesting part. The most interesting part is how this skin attaches to the body. In most mammals, the skin is tightly adhered to the muscles. In the honey badger, there's a layer of loose connective tissue between the skin and the muscles, allowing the skin to move freely relative to the body. The creature can literally twist inside its own skin, like a person in an oversized jacket. And this isn't just an anatomical feature, it's a combat tactic. When a predator grabs a honey badger by the scruff, it doesn't become trapped and helpless. It turns right in the grip and strikes back with claws and teeth. A leopard or hyena, accustomed to securing prey by the neck, faces a situation evolution didn't prepare them for. The victim spins in their jaws and attacks. It's like trying to hold on to a slippery bar of soap that bites back. Now let's look at the skull. In an adult honey badger, the bones of the skull fuse so tightly that it's nearly impossible to distinguish the boundaries of individual bony plates. This makes its head a monolithic block, incredibly strong, resistant to impacts and pressure. At the same time, the brain case of the honey badger is wider than that of dogs of similar size, indicating a well-developed brain for an animal with such a lifestyle. But we'll talk about the brain and intelligence later. Let's stay in the realm of mechanics for now. The honey badger's teeth are a separate topic. They often develop irregularly. Some are unusually small, while others grow at strange angles, as if nature assembled the jaw from whatever was available. Yet, the honey badger's bite force is such that it can crack turtle shells, not just puncture soft tissues, but actually break through hard bony shells. This indicates incredibly powerful chewing muscles and a skull architecture that distributes the load so that the teeth don't break under such pressure. The honey badger's paws are designed like 2 different tools. The front paws are equipped with long, powerful claws, its main working tools for digging. The honey badger digs constantly. It excavates burrows for resting, digs up nests of rodents and reptiles, and accesses underground beehives. The back claws, on the other hand, are short. They're meant for support and movement, not for digging. The soles of its paws are bare and padded with thick skin up to the wrists. The honey badger is partially plantigrade. It places its paw on the ground not just on its toes, but also on part of its foot, giving it stability while digging and in fights. Now take a look at its ears, or rather, try to find them. The honey badger's ears are almost completely hidden under folds of skin. This isn't a cosmetic defect, it's an adaptation. When you're constantly digging and frequently getting into fights, protruding ears are a vulnerability. They can get filled with dirt or torn in a struggle. The honey badger solved this problem radically. It tucked its ears under a protective skin flap. But the honey badger has another defense mechanism that almost no one talks about. It has a retractable anal pouch, a gland capable of releasing a secretion with such a sharp and nauseating smell that it repels predators from up to 40 meters away. 40 meters. That's the length of an Olympic swimming pool. Among weasels, such a gland is unique to the honey badger, although a similar structure is found in hyenas. There's evidence that this secretion can even disorient bees when the honey badger raids a hive. So this isn't just a last resort weapon, it's a multifunctional tool. And here we come to its coloration. A black body with a white or gray stripe on the back isn't camouflage, it's the exact opposite of camouflage. In biology, this type of coloration is called aposematic, meaning warning. It works like a road sign. Don't touch, it'll be bad. The coloration of a skunk is set up in exactly the same way, a black body with a white stripe that signals any predator from a distance that it's not worth the trouble because a chemical attack will follow. The honey badger essentially wears a warning sign, and most predators in its range have learned to read it. But let's say a predator didn't read it. Let's say it wasn't frightened by aggression or smell. The honey badger has another trick, thanatosis, or playing dead. The creature drops, freezes, and stops showing signs of life. Many predators lose interest in prey that's no longer moving. They trigger an instinct that tells them dead food can be dangerous or spoiled. The honey badger uses this, and then, when the threat retreats, it stands up and walks away. So, to sum up, thick, loose-fitting skin, a monolithic skull, jaws capable of cracking shells, shovel-like claws, hidden ears, chemical weapons, and the ability to play dead. All of this is packed into a body the size of a small dog. Each element complements the others, creating a system that works against predators much larger and stronger. But even that isn't the most astonishing thing about the honey badger, because in the third part, we'll talk about how it hunts some of the most dangerous snakes on the planet and why their venom has almost no effect on it. And the answer to that question lies not in strength or skin thickness, but in a single molecular change. In the southern Kalahari, within the Kalahari Transfrontier Park, scientists conducted a detailed study of the honey badger's diet. The results were so diverse that the list of prey reads like a restaurant menu where the chef decided to hold back nothing. More than 60 species of animals. 60. For a creature weighing as much as a large cat, that number sounds almost absurd. Almost half of all prey in the Kalahari consists of geckos and skinks, small lizards that the honey badger digs out from under rocks and burrows. About 40% is made up of rodents, gerbils, and mice. But the bulk of its food, when considering not the number of animals caught but the weight of what's eaten, comes from larger items: cobras, young African rock pythons, and South African hares. And here's where it gets interesting, because cobras on this list aren't random victims or rare exceptions. Venomous snakes are a regular part of the honey badger's diet just as naturally as mice are for cats. The honey badger eats its prey whole, completely. Skin, fur, feathers, bones, everything is consumed. It presses the food down with its front paws and methodically chews, leaving nothing behind. This is an important detail because it shows the level of efficiency. In conditions where food must be searched for hours, wasting anything is an unforgivable luxury. But let's return to the snakes. How does the honey badger survive bites that can kill an adult human in just a few hours? For a long time, this remained a mystery. Some speculated that it was due to its thick skin, suggesting that snake fangs simply couldn't penetrate it. Others thought the honey badger somehow avoided bites thanks to speed and agility. But none of these explanations held up under scrutiny because honey badgers have been observed after real bites from venomous snakes. They received doses of venom, lost consciousness, lay still for 20 minutes to 2 hours, and then got up and walked away. Sometimes they even returned to finish off the very snake that bit them. The answer was found by researcher Daniel Drabeck, and it turned out to be hidden not in muscles, not in skin, and not in behavior, but deep inside the cells, at the level of individual molecules. Drabeck obtained blood samples from honey badgers in several zoos, isolated their DNA, and began studying a specific gene. This gene codes for a protein known as the nicotinic acetylcholine receptor. It sounds complex, but the essence is simple. On the surface of every muscle cell in the body of any animal, there are special protein structures, receptors. They work like keyholes. When the nervous system sends a signal for the muscle to contract, a special key molecule fits into this keyhole and the muscle activates. This is how we move our arms, breathe, blink. All commands from the brain to the muscles pass through these receptors. Neurotoxins in snake venom, such as cobra venom, act like counterfeit keys. They latch onto the same receptor, block it, and prevent the real signal from passing through. Muscles stop receiving commands. First, the small muscles fail, eyelids, face, then the larger ones, then the respiratory muscles, and that's when the animal or human dies because the lungs simply stop working. So, Drabeck discovered that in the honey badger, there's been a change in this receptor. At position 187, where most mammals have an uncharged amino acid tryptophan, the honey badger has a positively charged arginine. One change, one amino acid out of hundreds that make up the protein. But this change alters both the shape and the electric charge of the part of the receptor where the toxin molecule tries to attach. You could explain it like this. The neurotoxin molecule approaches the receptor like a car to a parking spot, but the shape of the spot is changed. The car simply doesn't fit. The venom can't latch onto the receptor, can't block it, and the muscles keep working. But that's not all. Later, scientists discovered a second defense mechanism, so-called charge reversal mutations. In this case, a negatively charged amino acid in the receptor is replaced with a positively charged lysine. And then basic physics comes into play. The positive charge of the venom repels the positive charge of the receptor, and they push away from each other like two magnets with the same poles facing. The venom literally can't get close to its target. Two levels of protection. One is geometric. The altered shape prevents the molecule from fitting into place. The second is electrostatic, like charges repel the venom even before it gets close. Together, they create a system that renders cobra neurotoxins practically useless against the honey badger. But the most astonishing discovery by Drabeck isn't the mechanism itself, but where else it occurs. It turns out that exactly the same adaptation, mutations in the same receptors that change shape and charge, independently arose in at least 4 different groups of mammals: honey badgers, mongooses, hedgehogs, and pigs. 4 branches of the evolutionary tree that diverged millions of years ago arrived at the same solution. This is called convergent evolution, and for biologists, it's one of the most eloquent examples of how nature works with a limited set of possibilities. When the problem is the same, venomous snakes living nearby and posing a constant threat, evolution repeatedly finds the same solution, even if it takes different paths to get there. But it must be said honestly, the honey badger's resistance to venom isn't absolute. It's not a magical immunity or an impenetrable shield. With a large enough dose of venom, a honey badger can die. After a bite, it often experiences weakened symptoms of poisoning. It may lose coordination, fall, and lie still for quite a while. The difference is that the dose that would surely kill an animal of comparable size is merely a temporary inconvenience for the honey badger. It recovers where others do not. And this combination, a diet of over 60 species, the willingness to attack venomous snakes, molecular protection against neurotoxins, and the ability to chew its prey whole along with the bones, makes the honey badger one of the most versatile hunters among all predators of its size class. It's not fast, not particularly agile, and doesn't have sharp vision. But it takes a different approach: persistence, protection, and the willingness to eat what no one else dares to. In South Africa, in the Limpopo province, there's a wildlife rehabilitation center called Moholoholo. They care for animals that, for various reasons, can't return to the wild, wounded, orphaned, or confiscated from poachers. And it's there that a honey badger named Stoffel lived, who became perhaps the most famous honey badger on the planet, not because he was particularly large or aggressive, but because he repeatedly proved capable of solving problems that, in theory, should have been beyond him. Stoffel opened the latches on the gates of his enclosure. He didn't gnaw or break them, he actually opened them, figuring out the mechanism. When the latches were replaced with more complex ones, he found another way. He began dragging stones to the enclosure wall and stacking them on top of each other, creating steps. He climbed up these steps and climbed over the wall. When all the stones were removed from the enclosure, Stoffel found forgotten garden rakes, propped them against the wall, and used them as a ladder. Another time, he did the same with a broom. One night, he was found in the caretaker's bedroom. He had escaped from his enclosure, crossed the center's territory, and gotten into the living quarters. And here's what's important to understand. This isn't just a funny story about a clever little creature. Professor William McGrew, one of the world's leading experts on primate intelligence, looked at Stoffel's behavior and compared it to classic experiments by Wolfgang Köhler conducted back in the 1920s. In those experiments, chimpanzees were faced with the task of retrieving a banana suspended from the ceiling. The monkeys figured out how to stack wooden boxes on top of each other to build a structure of the necessary height. Stoffel did exactly the same thing, only instead of boxes, he used stones, and instead of a banana, he was motivated by freedom. This behavior is called complex tool use, not just picking up a stick and poking something, but constructing a sequence of actions where each subsequent step depends on the previous one. Dragging a stone to the wall, placing a second one on top, assessing the height, adding a third, climbing up. Among mammals outside of primates, dolphins, and some birds, such behavior is recorded extremely rarely, and the honey badger is one of the few animals where it has been documented. But here's what's surprising and even a little disappointing. There's still no formal study of the cognitive abilities of the honey badger in the scientific literature. Not a single controlled experiment, not a single peer-reviewed article dedicated specifically to its intelligence. Everything we know is based on observations in captivity, stories like Stoffel's, and reports from rangers and farmers in the wild. This means the actual level of cognitive abilities in honey badgers could be either higher or lower than we assume. We just don't know because no one has systematically tested it yet. Now, let's talk about how honey badgers live. And here we find a contrast because, despite their impressive biology, honey badgers are solitary creatures. They don't live in packs, don't form long-term pairs, and don't build complex social hierarchies. Males and females meet only for mating and then go their separate ways. Each honey badger controls a vast territory that it patrols alone, and overlapping territories usually end in conflict. Cubs are born completely helpless, blind, without developed claws. Claws begin to develop around the 4th week of life. Eyes open only on the 33rd day. Teeth fully form by 3 months. During all this time, the mother is the sole protector and source of food. She carries her cub in her mouth, often dragging it from one den to another to reduce the risk of detection by predators. The learning period lasts from 12 to 16 months. That's the time a young honey badger has to learn to hunt, dig burrows, recognize danger, and find food on its own. And here the statistics are ruthless. Mortality among young honey badgers reaches 47%. Almost half don't survive to independence. The main reasons are hunger and predators. Until the cub has mastered all the skills that make an adult honey badger so resilient, it remains vulnerable like any small animal in the savannah. Those who survive live in the wild for 7 to 10 years, in captivity, where there are no predators or hunger. Honey badgers can live up to 24 years. The difference between these figures speaks volumes about the price of life in the wild, even for such a well-armed creature. And here it's worth discussing the role the honey badger plays in the ecosystem, because it's not just another predator in the food chain. The honey badger constantly controls populations of rodents and arthropods, and this is a real benefit for agriculture. Rodents destroy crops, arthropods harm plants. The honey badger reduces their numbers simply by hunting daily. Its habit of constantly digging burrows brings another benefit that few consider. It aerates the soil. Each burrow is a channel through which air and water penetrate deep into the ground, improving its structure. Additionally, abandoned honey badger burrows become shelters for dozens of other species, from lizards to small mammals that can't dig their own hiding places. Conflict with humans certainly exists. Honey badgers raid beehives, attack poultry, and this poses a real problem for farmers in Africa. But modern protective methods allow for managing this without exterminating the honey badgers themselves. Reinforced beehives, electric fences, proper poultry management, all of this reduces damage to an acceptable level. The honey badger's status in the International Union for Conservation of Nature's Red List is of least concern. It's not on the brink of extinction, its population is stable, and its range is vast. And now, having gone through all 4 parts, we can finally see the full picture. The honey badger isn't just a meme about fearlessness or a funny little creature from compilations labeled the most daring animal on Earth. It's the last representative of an ancient subfamily whose relatives went extinct millions of years ago. It's an engineering masterpiece of evolution, with armored skin, a monolithic skull, chemical weapons, and a molecular shield against snake venom. It's one of the few non-primates capable of complex tool use. And it's a solitary creature that controls the ecosystem around it simply by living as it knows how, digging, hunting, surviving. 10 million years of evolution have made it who it is. And while we argue online about who would win in a fight, the honey badger or someone else, it just keeps doing its thing, as it always has. Thanks for subscribing to the channel and liking the video.